So without further ado, let's get on. So firstly, thank you so much for giving up your Thursday afternoon. You will know, as I will know, that in business, time is our most valuable asset. As an asset class, it's unique, I think. Once time has gone, it has gone. You know, money can be lost and remade, but time, we never get yesterday back. So you'll never get this hour back. So make the most of it, take notes, and my commitment to you is to make this an investment hour for you that will make a difference to your business. So we don't want to be busy in business, we want to be effective. And that's very much why in our pre-talk yesterday, which I think I managed to catch everybody, absolutely we'll have a follow-up call, as many of you as possible next week, so we can take what you learned today and put it into your business and make sure that you do get the investment for your time. So thanks for joining, and get those notes so it is worthwhile. And what we're going to be covering are some of the simplest and easiest ways to increase your revenues, in particular your profit. And we'll be dropping in a few examples of how you can do that as we go through, but absolutely showing you the technique to calculate that for yourself as well. As we say, if we keep yourselves on mute, but if you've got a question, just ask it. We're a small enough group. I can't keep an eye on everybody and the chat box and everything else. So just shout out and we will take it from there. I doubt you're going to multiply shouting out at the same time. So let's start with what we call a business. So we call a business a commercial, profitable enterprise that works or can work without you. So I think you're all busily working in your businesses at the moment. And so that is for many of us for most of the time, but a lot of the businesses that I work with have an aspiration so that ultimately the business can work without the business owners in it, so that it can then make passive income, indeed ultimately be sold for a much higher multiple, or licensed or franchised. It doesn't really matter what the end result, desired result is, that the steps to get there are the same. And ultimately giving yourself the flexibility as to whether you're working or not in the business is something that's quite attractive. But absolutely, it has to be commercial, it has to be profitable, and it has to work, whatever. So we do that by making sure we're working what we call on the business as well as in it, or indeed, ultimately, instead of working in it. So what do I mean by that? What I mean is when you're working in your business, you're doing the operations of it. If you're an accountant, you're accounting. If you're a consultant, you're consulting. If you're making, I'm trying to remember who we've got here, horse rugs, then it's the horse rug production, or purchase and selling on, resale, etc. When you're working on the business, that's where you're really helicoptering above the business, thinking strategically, planning, looking at the horizon, looking around the next corner. What are the competitors doing? Where do you need to be heading next? How are you responding to the marketplace? All of that is the real value added activities that are often left behind in the need to deal with the urgent and important things that bob up day to day. But in fact, the most value is created when we spend time on the business, things that are never urgent. They're very important, but they never hit the urgent button, and therefore sometimes they get left behind. So fantastic, you've made the time to be here. This is time spent on the business. Your business learning is very much an on the business activity. So going back to my entrepreneurial seizure, most people started their business with a dream. There was a reason why you're in a business, and you've got a dream. It's going to give you something you haven't got already. So let's think about, where are you now? And this is where you can start jotting those notes down. What revenue is your business generating today? What kind of place are you living in? What are you driving? What's the investment portfolio I can't say this, portfolio you've got at the moment? Is it the one you want? Now, I love this question. What are your upcoming travel plans? They're probably somewhere in the UK at the moment, but maybe a better question is, what were your travel plans for this year before it all got a bit hijacked by COVID? What do your family like to do? And how much time are you in the business, and how much leisure time do you have? And then I want you to compare, how do you want that to be in 5 years' time? So what does that take us to? 2025, something like that? And 2025, what revenue do you want then? Are you living in the same place, or are you in a different place? Are you in the same mobile, or have you upgraded? In 5 years, what investments would you make? Where will you have traveled, etc.? The other piece I like to think is, when are you thinking of retiring, or indeed working part-time? And what would it take to have that happen? We often don't take time to think ahead and plan ahead. And what happens is, actually, we tend to overestimate what we can do in the short term. Who plans out more than can possibly be done in a day on their to-do list? So we plan too much to do in the day, in the week, but actually we tend to under-plan what could be achieved in a longer term horizon, a 5-year or 10-year horizon. So do take the time to think, what could you do in 5 years? In fact, let's have a quick hands up. Who's got a 5-year plan, personal or business? Thumbs up if you've got one. Great. 2, I think it is a clappy hands, a hands up. I think that's a hands up. So we've got 3 or 4, yeah. So some of you might have a little bit of homework to do already, to just set down. It's quite a fun thing to do. So when we've got a view of where we're going, we need to then come back in and look at our business where we are today. And there's some key things we need to have under control, and not just under control, but absolutely humming along in order for our business to be successful. First off, we need to have a really effective sales and marketing process. In fact, there are 2 processes. We need to have a sales strategy that's working for us, bringing in the leads at the right value, that is then providing us leads for the sales process that converts them. Without a reliable funnel of sales and marketing to provide you those leads, you're not going to have a thriving business. Then when we've got that worked out, that's when we can start to look at then making life easier for ourselves by applying technology to those proven processes in sales and marketing. The sales and marketing is a phase I find with my clients that is quite experimental. It always is. Until you've got it sussed, it is experiment. You're trying, you're tweaking, you're improving, to make it as good as possible and as effective as possible. And whilst you're doing that, things are changing quite a bit, and therefore investing in technology to automate isn't a worthwhile investment until you've actually got comfortable with the volume that you're getting through that process. Then we can add technology to automate where we can. We also need to have systems in place, as in processes of the best way of doing everything in our business. It's the how-to manual of your business. Could someone else come in and do those tasks as well as you do? Is that recorded in some media or another? Now, in the olden days, this would be some really tedious, big kind of manual all typed up or something. But now we've got flow charts. We've got video is a great way to show people how to process or deliver a process, to show people. Checklists, again, massively helpful for people to easily follow what has to happen for something to be successful. And this will not only be the sales and marketing, but it'll be the operations of your business. Those are important steps to do before going big on hiring your people. Too often I work with businesses and their first employees what happened was they got so busy, they got busier than the current arms and legs could cope with. So what happens is they reach out, and grab the nearest arms and legs that they can find, which has a tendency to be a family member or a cousin of, or a friend of, a cousin of, or something like that. But they're somehow connected to you personally. And they want to help you out, so they come along. But actually, there isn't clarity about what job they need to be doing. There isn't clarity about what skills they need or how the job's going to be measured. And invariably in that grabbing the arms and legs, nobody actually assessed what skills they were getting either. So after a few months, maybe a year, then there's the kind of falling out because the expectation of the business owner isn't fulfilled because actually the employee didn't really know what they were meant to be doing. And there wasn't clear processes to follow for them to be able to be successful. So we need to get those first bits in place, and then we can start more safely recruiting people when we know exactly what they need to be doing and the skill sets they need to have to be successful at that. Now, clearly, life's not all tidy like this. You can't run a restaurant without more than one person. You know, you have to have a team, you have to have a front of house, you have to have a chef. And it takes more than two people generally to run any kind of cafe or restaurant. So sometimes you need to get the people in, and they need to be flexible enough to get sorted and be effective. But you don't want to massively increase the number in your team until you've got these bottom three pieces complete. And when you've got that, you can then start to really leverage the whole. What you end up with is a well-oiled machine that works. Back to our definition, commercial, profitable enterprise that works. And as we hire more people, it increasingly works without you because you can delegate to the people you've hired. And then you have this well-oiled machine that you can then, if you choose, replicate, opening another outlet or adding an adjacency, but copying all the processes that you already have working. So those are the keys to business success. But you can see at the bottom, and fundamentally, is the sales and marketing, and that is the key to profitability. So we're going to spend a little bit of time on that sales and marketing, and I think, you know, at the moment, absolutely critical. We've kind of come out of, well, we're coming out of COVID, I think it's fair to say at the moment. But what's happened is we've had 4 months of lockdown where we've got into some very different habits as consumers and as businesses. We found different ways of doing things, different ways of getting things, different needs have come up, and some needs have gone away. So the world has changed hugely in terms of what products and services people are needing, wanting, and using. And it might be where we're positioning ourselves in the marketplace is moving to. Were we top market, middle market, lower market? What's happened to them? Because not only have we got the whole lockdown scenario to be mindful of, we've got the going into recession. Increasingly, I'm talking to business owners, and actually the other half of their personal partnership has lost their role. There's going to be such a large number of what were 2-income families and now 1-income families. So I think it's widely predicted there's going to be some kind of recession. So again, we've got to look at that economic different situation too. All of that is going to have a huge bearing on your marketing. So some people see sales and marketing as an expense. And in fact, if you look at your P&L on your Xero or your QuickBooks or whatever, you'll find it under the expense section. We prefer to think of it as an investment because if you don't do sales and marketing, you're not going to have any leads. So you absolutely have to invest up front to get your leads and business coming in. And we should be managing it as an investment so that for every pound out that we spend on marketing, we should be getting back revenue and profits that more than cover the cost of that investment to get that lead. But actually, most businesses I speak to don't know if it's an investment or not, or an expense. And, you know, some businesses are getting that and some are not. Again, let's have a quick stop and a hands up. Let me get everybody visible again. Who could honestly say they know their marketing is working and they're getting a positive return on their marketing pounds? One hand up. Okay. More homework noted. Yes. I'm going to show you how you can tell if you're getting this positive investment or not. This is absolutely the first step to profitability. You know, the quickest way I often find my fee when I'm starting to work with someone, it's by stopping marketing that isn't working. I was talking to a guy who ran an auto business. He had a beautiful glossy page in an absolutely perfect magazine for his target market. Absolutely spot on magazine, glossy page, £800 a month on this page. And I said, how many leads did he get from it? Hadn't a clue. So guess what his homework was? Find out. Month later, do you know how many leads he knew he had from it? None. Not one. And in fact, when he went back and talked to all his previous clients, nobody had come from that advert. So we saved him 800 quid straight to the bottom line into profits, just like that. So how are we going to find this out? By testing and measuring. So who knows where all their leads come from? Do you know how they come into you? Another quick hands up. Who knows where their leads come from? Great thing about Zoom, we get the facial expressions as well. Okay, so that's a little better. Some of you know where your leads come from. Brilliant. Do I know where you came from? Do you remember? I asked you. In order to sign up to this, you had to say, where did you hear from it? Guess why I wanted to know that? Because I want to know what's working in terms of reaching out to people who need some advice. So incorporate into your marketing a way of finding out where people are coming from. And if there is no other way of doing it, at least whenever you're talking to somebody, you can insert that little question, can I ask you where you heard about me from? And why wouldn't somebody tell you? It's absolutely no problem to tell you where they came from. Good, I'm seeing lots of notes being written. Perfect. So we're going to test and measure, which means we have to record where it's coming from. And we're going to try different things. So anybody who does Facebook, anybody do Facebook advertising? Some of you must, yeah. Are we doing A and B tests? No, okay, so we need to be testing out what works. This one or this one, which gets the better result, this one or this one? And there's trackers you could put in there, pixel thingies. I'm not the expert at this, but you absolutely, the great thing, especially at the moment, with so much marketing going online, we can put in little pixel thingies that will tell us where people have come from. So we know which one's working, and then we can put our money against the one that works the best. But if you don't test it, you don't know. So this is what we mean by testing and measuring. So when we've tested and measured, we can then find out these two things. When we're tracking how many leads we're getting in and what's happening and absolutely who's buying, we can find out these two things that you need to know. Firstly, acquisition cost. So if you invested £300 in advertising, Facebook advertising, whatever it might be, and you've got 10 customers, you are paying £30 per customer. That's your cost of acquiring that customer. Now, is that good or bad? Depends for you on how much somebody's value you're getting, what's each customer worth, and we'll come on to that. But whatever that value is for you, what we want to do is reduce that. We want to reduce our cost to increase our profitability, yes? So how are we going to reduce that? We can reduce that cost per acquisition in two ways, can't we? One, we can reduce the cost of advertising, or two, we can get more customers from that same investment. Either which way, it's going to reduce our cost of acquisition. So that's a number you want to be tracking, your acquisition cost. That needs to be married up with your lifetime value. So the value that a customer gives you over the lifetime that they stay with you. So there's a couple of things you need to know for your lifetime value is one, how much revenue and profit you get from them, and two, how long do they stay with you? So how long does a client tend to stay with you? And you can, and some of you, it might be a one-off. They have one transaction with you, they only need you once, and that's fine. Others of you, if you're providing an ongoing service like marketing service or accountancy, it's going to be more of an ongoing retained, and you could be 5 years, 10 years. But know what that average time is and the average value, and then you can get to this lifetime value. So here's our example. Customer spends £550 a year over for each of 6 years. That's bringing you £3,300. Does that feel quite a good value to pay £30 to get £3,300 worth of business back? I'd say that's a cheap acquisition cost, yeah? In fact, you might be happy to spend 500 quid to acquire them because they're a valuable client, and that's still a positive return on investment. So how do we increase our lifetime value? Again, 2 ways we can go. One, we can have the greater spend with us over that lifetime, over the same time period, is going to increase the value. Or the same spend a year, but for a longer period of time, so increase the retention with you. This is why repeat buyers are so valuable, because they're increasing that lifetime value. You get a double dip of revenue without having that acquisition cost, because you've already got them, as long as you're still communicating with them. So acquisition cost, lifetime value. If you don't know those, there's a bit more homework for you. So now I'm going to introduce you to the 5 ways that I was teasing you with in the title of this webinar. So a different way to look at some of the core numbers in your business. Now, first off, when we talk to business owners, the numbers people tend to know first off are their revenue and their profit. I'm sure if I asked you, most of you would be able to get that pretty quickly, if indeed you didn't know that off the top of your head. Some people might know how many customers they've got, especially if it's smaller numbers, bigger value items, smaller number. But those red items you can see here, the number of customers, the revenue and the profit, I call those outcomes. They're all an outcome of something else that is actually more important. So the number of customers you've got is an outcome of how many leads you got in through your marketing and how many of those leads you converted to purchase from you through your sales process. And if you multiply one by the other, you're going to get your number of customers. Now, it's really important to know, because if you were to say, I just want more customers, and I hope plenty of people say that, I just need some more customers. Yeah, don't we all? But if you need more customers, what do you need to change to get them? Do you need to improve your marketing or your sales? If you're already getting a whole stack of leads, but it's your sales process that's pants, spending more money on getting more leads is actually going to be detrimental to your business, because you're spending out on those leads and you still don't know how to convert them into sales. Again, you actually need to work on your conversion rate and your sales process and improve that, so that for the same spend, you're getting your cost of acquisition down and you're getting more sales in. So it's really important to know, is it the leads or the conversion that you need to improve to get more customers? Now we've got our customers. Oops, sorry. Now we've got our customers. The next red one here, the next outcome is revenue. Now here's a different way of looking at revenue. Your revenue is dependent on how many transactions, what number of transactions your customer has with you, and what's the average value of each of those transactions. And if you time the number of customers by your average number of transactions, by your average value of transactions, you will get to your revenue. Mathematically, that is true. And it's a far more interesting way of looking at your revenue number, because this is where we can start to see, okay, what can I do to increase the number? How many times somebody does business with me in a set period? We can do this annually, monthly, quarterly, whatever's right for your business. Some educationally, we need to do it termly. So we need to be tracking that, and these are relatively easy to calculate. Certainly the average value of a sale, you can do typically till systems or revenue systems. You can take the number of invoices and divide by the number of clients. So we need to get to these numbers to tell us our revenue. And then our final outcome is profit, which is an outcome of how much revenue we got in and what our profit margin is, what's left after all our expenses. And I like to look at this from a net profit point of view. So gross profit is when you've your revenue less the cost of goods, the actual cost of the product you've sold. But that doesn't count for all your team, office, fixed costs, variable costs that are there underneath that, which can suck up an awful lot of profit. So I think we need to look at a net profit when we're looking at this. So let me bring this to life a little bit for you. So here we've got our 5, these are our 5 levers, the blue ones: number of leads, conversion, transactions, value, sale, and profit. These are the ones we want to be measuring and managing. So I'm going to, I was looking down the list, and we've got some quite diverse businesses today. So I thought I'm not going to be a favorite for anybody. I'm going to take a different example. So my example here is going to be a dog kennels. So imagine, actually, let's just check how many, let's see, quick hands up. How many of you have got a dog or a cat and have experienced or even have a clue what happens in a dog kennels or a cattery? Hands up. Relevant for some of you. Okay, imagine you're going on holidays, finally we're allowed abroad next year, and you've got a dog to put in your kennels where they stay for whilst you're on holiday, they go and stay in the kennels. So we've got, you work out works for kennels now, because the first number we've got here is the number of leads. Yeah, I know it's a bit corny for a Thursday afternoon. Anyhow, so in our example here, we have got 4,000 leads. We have got a conversion rate of 25%. And so that's going to give us, 1,000 customers. I think we'll take this as an annual basis. So throughout the year, this kennels has 4,000 leads coming in, converts 25%, and ends up with 1,000 customers. On average, these customers have 2 transactions. So this would mean their little doggy stay twice a year in the kennels. And their average sale is £100. If anybody does actually have a dog that's visited a kennels, you know this is either an incredibly cheap kennels or they were only staying overnight, maybe the weekend. So that's going to give us our revenue of £1,000 times 2 times 100. We've got a revenue of 200,000. Are we all comfortable with this? Shout out if you're not. We've now got a profit margin of 25%, which gives, for your profit, £50,000. So that's our starting position. So again, this is where we need to start in your business. What is your starting position for these numbers? What's happening today in terms of average number of leads per month, maybe, or per year, whatever's easier for you to work these out. How many of those actually become customers? How many times they transact? How often? So when we know our starting position, we can then start to look at how can we make this better? And this is where the fun starts. So what we're going to do is have a think. So let's think what it would take just to do a 10% increase for each of these. So we've got our, done 2 there. We've got our kennel business. They were having 4,000 leads come in, and now they want to increase their leads by 10%. So that would take them up to 4,400 leads a year. That's the maths of it. But let's think, what kind of strategies could we use here? So how are we going to get an extra 400 inquiries, basically, about dogs coming to stay for their holidays? So we could, one thought would be, could we create what I call a strategic alliance, a partnership, maybe, with places where there is a high number of dog-owning people? We always want to find a high concentration of the people who require our services. So where would you find a lot of dog owners? At the vets. Yeah, so we could have some posters or leaflets out at the vets, or they put a little something in the little bag with their pills or jabs or whatever you're picking up from the vets. What about dog groomers? Dog groomers only deal with dog owning people. Definition. We could create a partnership with them. We can make it attractive for them to promote our business. So if we created a partnership with a couple of local vets and a couple of local dog groomers, do you think we could get quite a number more inquiries coming through? So 400 a year, what's that? That's 30 something a month. Less than 10 a week extra. So we've done the hard work, we've put our marketing out there, got more people inquiring. What we want now to do is to increase our conversion rate because we don't want to waste those new leads. So increasing conversion rate by 10%. We're not adding 10% on, remember, we're just increasing it by 10%. So 10% of 25 is 2.5. So we're just going up to 27.5% conversion rate. So I'll give you a top tip here for free. Let's just make sure I can see you because I can see the little hands up. So who currently has a sales process that is documented, scripted, checklisted, and followed religiously every time you have an inquiry? Hands up. Nope. A little bit of homework. Having a sales process that you know works, or even if you don't know works, just tracking it and constantly improving it. Because you'll have some meeting, you'll make a sale, you'll absolutely make some sales without it, but I bet there's times when you go, oh, that was a great question. That was a great response to that comment. Yeah? Can you think of times when you've gone, oh, I was on my game there, that worked well? But if we don't write it down and pop it into the process for next time, you won't use it next time. And you've just lost that moment of learning. So we want to be consistently evolving this process so that we remember to do the best bits every single time. And the higher value your product is, the more steps you need in your sales process. And at the moment, researchers said used to be that you need about 7 to 8 steps for an average sale. A step being a contact point of some description with your target audience, with your prospect. I'm now hearing it's up to 11. You know, there's like another 3 or 4 steps. People are more cautious now. They need more confidence, and you need to build that confidence through your sales process. So if you haven't got a sales process, well, you will have a sales process. You just haven't thought through what you do. You're subconsciously going through a process. So you need to track it and build it up and improve it. Right. So if you had a sales process, I can guarantee you will get plus 10% at least increase in your conversion rate. So when we take those 2 changes, look what's happened to our customers. We've now got ourselves 210 extra customers because we've got 27.5% of those extra 400. So we've now got more customers. That's good news, but it doesn't stop there because we're going to work every single one of these numbers, these levers, these 5 levers to profit. So we've done 2. So the next one is number of transactions. On average, how many times does your customer come back and buy? Now this number can vary hugely. You know, if you're a corner shop, your average number of times somebody buys from you, they might come and get their paper every day. Or they might get their chocolate bar as they go on their dog walk, who knows? But they might have an average number of transactions, which is, you know, 3 times a week. I'm thinking of your, some of the businesses here, it might be 1 transaction a year. And then a number of people might, if you're on a retainer, it's 1 transaction a month. So these numbers can be wildly different, and it doesn't really matter what the number is. What matters is we're putting in place things to increase that number for you. So whatever your starting number is, we want to improve it. If it's a low number, if you've got an average of 1 transaction a month at the moment, then we could just try and get it to 1.1. It's still a 10% increase. That's the beautiful thing about percentages. It doesn't matter what number you start with. You're adding up that percentage. So so how can we get our transactions in our kennels business from 2 to 2.2? So we want them to come more often. So what we could do is make sure, so maybe they tend to come and give the dog to stay for their annual holiday in the summer and a bit of a ski break at February, say. So that's their 2 transactions. Well, maybe we need to tell them about the fact that we do weekend breaks for doggies if they're going somewhere where there's somebody allergic to dogs, for example. Or we need to explain they could do a Christmas Day shopping, go up to town, Christmas shopping day out, we'll have the dog for the day. It's still adding a transaction. It's another time the dog is with you. The other thing we could do is we could slightly change our target audience. What if we went after people who typically we're going for Kuoni customers now, and they go on holiday 3 times a year or 4 times a year. So we're going for them. So different ways of getting that average transaction up. So now we've dealt with the number of transactions. Let's move on to the average value of each of those transactions. Currently, we're at £100 for our doggy kennels here. We want to get them up. Now, this is where you can have such fun. I love this with my dogs. But with all businesses, if you've got a product range, you just sell more products or different products to that. If you haven't got a product range, get one. So with your dog kennels, you could spend, how would they spend more? Well, they have a bit of dog training whilst they're there. They have a bit of a pamper. They get clipped and washed whilst they're there. That's more value going on. Have them stay for longer. We can do an extra 2 extra days. You don't have to rush back from your holiday and dash to get them. We'll have them for the extra day at half, at an offer. Various different ways you can increase that average sale. You could have 3 dogs staying, not 2. Again, change your audience. That's per visit of the owner. You've got more dogs staying. That's a higher value transaction. Volume. So selling in bulk, another way of getting your value up. Might be bulk product. It might be bulk service. Average value goes up if you have a year's worth, an option to pay for the full year ahead. That's increasing your value sale. So sometimes you might have a strategy that increases the number of transactions and the sale might go down a little bit. Sometimes it's the other way around. But overall, we want to have strategies that on average increase both of those. So all we're trying to do, we've had a load of strategies there. All we're trying to do is increase it to 110, extra £10. So now we're taking our higher number of customers times our 2.2 transactions times our 110 now higher value sale. Now look what's happened to our revenue. We've got almost an extra £100,000 on our revenue. And we haven't done anything wild and wacky. We've just done 4 different 10% increases. And then the final thing here, we're going to look at profit margin. So profits, there's 2 ways to get your profit margin to move at a basic level. One is to put your prices up, and the other is to take your costs down, or do a little bit of both. Definitely do that cost check. So first place to go is a cost challenge. Look at all your costs. What would happen if you took them all down 10%? When did you last negotiate your electric? When did you last negotiate your phone system? That's another one that seems to eat up a load of money. You can renegotiate that down often to a significant advantage. So what we want to do is between price up, cost down, is to get a 10% difference improvement. So up to 27.5% profit margin. Multiply that through, we've now got £80,000 profit. So an extra £30,525 profit on what started off as 50. So what that actually gives us is a 40% increase in our revenue and 61% increase in your profits. Who could use a 61% increase in their profits at the moment? Oops. Yep. Yep, that'd be quite nice to have. And did any of that feel particularly wacky? It's just consistently applying and working on those 5 numbers. Managing them each up or down, depending on which way we're going. And we can get that 61%. And that's just purely mathematical. And actually, often when I sit down and do this, people go, well, if you're starting with a small number of, if you have 10 leads a month and you're going to increase it by 10%, that's an extra 1 lead a month. They're going, well, that's a bit undercooked, isn't it? Let's go for 2 or 3. And you can get even more. So 61% profits, if I say at the beginning you can get that, you're going to go, oh, doesn't sound very realistic, but hopefully you're beginning to feel that is actually within grasp. Dreams can and do come true, and not just about donuts. But we need to start thinking like an entrepreneur. We need to start thinking about working and spending more time on our business rather than in it, so that we're looking ahead and putting in place these strategies. To do that, we need to have that plan for a future. Start thinking 5 years out. Where do we want to be? Because imagine if you did a 61% increase in profits year on year for 5 years. That would be quite special. You'd have a significantly different bank balance at the end of that. And yet it's not outlandish. But we do have to make changes now, because you know the saying, if you keep doing what you've always done, you're going to get what you always got. So we need to start changing some of those levers. We need to get working on straight away, and then get something working on all of them as soon as possible. Because it is absolutely possible to move those dials quite significantly. So we also, as well as that 61% extra profit, through looking at the processes and the technology and hiring team where appropriate, we can start to get you extra time as well. And for different people in different places, sometimes it's time they need because they're working 70, 80 hours a week, and they're completely missing out on the lives of small kiddies growing up. For others, actually, time isn't the issue. We need to get the profit. But just think, what would you do? Imagine your life with 300 hours extra in a year. What could you do with that? Amazing things you could do. Or indeed the extra 61% profit. What would that enable you to do for yourself, for the family, for others? We need to be having this, because this is what's going to give us the energy to be creative and think about and get these strategies done, because we're going to have to start doing things differently, which means we need to get out of our comfort zone, and that's a little bit hard work, and we need good motivation to do that. So that's why this is important to be thinking about, what am I going to do with that? So Jim Rohn, sadly not with us anymore, but absolute beacon of advice in the small business world here. Never wish your life were easier, wish that you were better. Very, very pertinent at the moment, I think. I think there's probably times when we've all slipped into wishing life was a little bit easier as we've gone through lockdown. But actually, let's just wish we were better at overcoming some of the hurdles that have faced us. And this second quote is never a truer word, and almost a more difficult word to follow here. Work harder on yourself than you do on your job. This is all about working smart, not hard. So do you spend more time in the job, turning the cogs, or learning and educating yourselves on how to do things differently and more effectively? It's a bit like sharpening the saw, isn't it? Keep the saw sharp. Keep the saw sharp. So work harder on yourself than you do on your job. And then Brad Sugars, who's the guy who founded Action Coach, has a horribly true phrase here. I call it horribly true. Where you will be in that 5 years, if you think back to that first slide when we talked about where we are now, what do we want to be living in, driving, etc., etc., where you will actually end up in 5 years' time will depend on the books that you read or the learning that you do, the people that you associate with. Now that's a bit of a tough one to take sometimes. The people that you hang out with, people that you are absorbing information, absorbing vibe from, are they positive? Are they uplifting? Are they pulling you forward? Or are they dragging you back, being the naysayers, the glass half empties? We want to be pulled up. So the people you associate with is really important. Who is pulling you along and up? And then finally, the actions we can take. Because we can do all the reading we like and be with all the right people. If we do nothing with that and we don't take any action, then we're not going to move. So Now it's time to get into action. I've thrown a whole load of information at you at a great rate of knots. I hope you've probably all got now sore wrists from making notes. So I just want to wrap up, and I'm going to do this, and then absolutely we're going to have time for some questions, and I'm absolutely sure there will be. So I want you to flick through your notes, A, to find the things that you didn't quite understand, to ask me, and secondly, you might have had loads of ideas about things you could do and then be in a bit of an overwhelmed situation. So I want you to look back and find the top 3 things, just 3 things that you'll actually commit to take action on from what we've covered today. Then we need to get you booked onto your pro bono coaching call, where we can take this and look at any area of this you particularly want to explore. Or the alternative is actually we can have a bit of a longer meeting, and we'll actually look at these numbers for your business and see what the opportunity realistically is for your business, which can be quite a eye-opening, positively experience. And then the final thing I wanted to brief you on is that I'm doing, for those of you who haven't got a plan that you're working to at the moment, I'm doing a 90-day planning workshop next Friday, Friday the 14th in the morning, 9 till 11:30 on Zoom. Actual workshop, you're going to be working, hence workshop. I had somebody join that went, oh, I didn't realize I was going to have to do work on this. Yeah. You're going to create your plan for the next 90 days in terms of what you need to get done to get where you want to be at the end of 90 days. 90 days is a proven sort of planning cycle. We can keep focused just about for 90 days with a bit of a prod in between whiles. Any longer than that, it's a bit far out. So, but without a 90-day plan, we won't actually think what we want to achieve. So you're welcome to come on that. And all of these things can be booked and organized if you find it when you get the feedback form. So that's the bit.ly link, and that's the link to book time in my calendar. I have now actually put it in the chat box, I'm pretty sure. Let me go to the chat box, and people have been chatting. Okay, actually it might, hang on, right, okay. So I've just sent the feedback form, so if you could just click on that, at least get it open in your browser, that will enable you to fill out. It's literally a 2-minute form, and you can just go, yep, pro bono call, yes, I'd like to find out more about the 90-day planning. And if you're keen to nab one of next week's slots for our pro bono one, there's my calendar access too. Oops, I've done something funny there. Oh no, I've gone off to my calendar. That was not the intent. Get back to the PowerPoint. Great. So let me draw breath there whilst you're looking at your notes. Who's going to start off with a question? And we've got a question there about how this might apply to them. Want me to go over any bits again? Conscious I went through really fast. Just unmute yourself and shout out, that would be fine. I bamboozled you all into silence. Any questions? You've all been very shy. Okay. So if there's no questions, then as they do open the feedback form, send that back to me. We'll get you sorted out with the coaching call that we'll have next week. And I wish you a successful rest of the day. Thank you for joining us. Take care. We've got to do the Zoom wave.